The first time the police sealed the Hargreave house, they did it with chains. The second time they did it with concrete. And the third time, they stopped pretending it mattered. Because the house wasn't holding people inside the way a locked door holds a prisoner. It was holding them the way a throat holds a scream. Mara Collins vanished 2 weeks ago, and the only thing the town received in return was her equipment stacked neatly in the living room like an offering. The final audio file was worse than any footage. A child laughing, followed by a slow knock from inside the walls. Daniel's car had been found the next morning on Black Hollow Road, doors open, keys still in the ignition, as if he had stepped out for 1 second and never made it to the next. At first, law enforcement treated it like every other incident. Search the property, sweep the woods, interview locals, file the paperwork. But then the lead investigator, Detective Rowan Pike, watched Mara's last recovered recording. And what he saw made his hands tremble. The footage wasn't just black. It was black with shape. A silhouette that moved like smoke, tall, unnaturally thin, its head cocked slightly as though it were listening. And behind it, the hallway inside the house did something impossible. It stretched, bent, and rearranged itself in real time, like the interior was being rewritten. Rowan had worked homicide for 14 years. He had seen bodies staged. He had seen cults. He had seen men do things to families that made him stop believing in the word normal. But this was a place that behaved like a predator. Rowan didn't tell his team what he was thinking. He couldn't. He just ordered the case reopened as a possible serial abduction, a label that made bureaucratic sense even if the facts didn't. Then he did what investigators always do when the present refuses to explain itself. He went back to the beginning. The sealed file from 1989 was missing. Not misplaced. Not lost. Missing in the way someone removes a page from a book and burns it. But Rowan found something else. A retired paramedic named Elias Crow, the first responder on the original Hargreave call. Elias didn't want to talk. He didn't even like hearing the house's name. He met Rowan at a diner 30 miles away, kept his back to the window, and flinched at every creak of the building settling. He slid a yellowed photograph across the table. The Hargreave dining room. The parents sitting at the table. And something in the background just behind the father's shoulder, half visible in the doorway. A dark shape. Too tall to be human. Its limbs looked wrong. Not broken. Not dislocated. Wrong, like it had been built from a bad memory of a person. Elias whispered what he had never put in a report. The house wasn't silent when they entered. It was humming. A low vibration under the floorboards, like the building had a heartbeat. Then Elias said something that stuck in Rowan's mind like a splinter. The kids were upstairs. We heard them. They were laughing. Rowan stared. Elias swallowed hard, eyes glassy. Not scared. Not crying. Laughing. Like someone was playing with them. Rowan left the diner with one certainty. The house didn't take by force. It took by invitation. That night, Rowan returned to his office and pulled every missing persons report tied to Black Hollow Road. 9 disappearances over decades. Different ages. Different backgrounds. Same pattern. All of them entered alone. All of them were last heard from on a recording. And every recording had one thing in common at the end. A sound that didn't belong. A knock. Sometimes 1. Sometimes 3. Sometimes a soft tapping like fingernails on wood. But always from inside the walls. Rowan decided he wouldn't make the same mistake. He assembled a team. Not a ghost hunting crew. Not influencers with flashlights. Actual professionals. A forensic tech, a search and rescue tracker, and an electrician named Maribel Voss who specialized in old structures. They arrived just before dawn, when the world feels least stable, when shadows still cling to corners and your mind is most vulnerable to imagining movement. The house looked the same from the outside, but Rowan noticed something new. The vines on the foundation weren't growing up. They were growing inward, like the house was feeding. Maribel measured the voltage around the property and found a pulse. Not a current, a rhythm. like the air itself was beating. They entered through the same half-open front door Mara had used, and Rowan felt it instantly. The pressure, the heaviness, the sensation of stepping into water that didn't wet your skin. The smell hit next: mold, old wood, and the faint metallic edge that reminded him of blood. The living room was immaculate in the wrong way. No dust on the center of the floor, as if something dragged itself across it regularly. Mara's tripods had left faint circular marks, like the house remembered exactly where she stood. The forensic tech photographed everything, but Rowan noticed the camera glitching, struggling to focus. It was like the lens couldn't decide what was real. Upstairs, they found the children's rooms. Perfectly preserved. Toys arranged in neat rows. Beds made. A music box on a shelf. Rowan opened the music box. It started playing. It shouldn't have. No batteries. No wind-up key. Yet the tinny melody crawled through the air, slow and wrong, like the house was mimicking the idea of a lullaby. Then the power shift happened. It didn't announce itself with thunder or screams. It happened quietly, which was worse. The hallway behind them changed. The staircase they climbed no longer led down to the front door. It led down into darkness. The walls lengthened. The doors multiplied. And from somewhere beneath the floorboards came the sound of children whispering in a language Rowan didn't recognize. The search and rescue tracker swore under his breath. He had left chalk marks on the banister on their way up. They were gone. Replaced by scratch marks. Fresh. And tall enough to be at Rowan's eye level. The house was rewriting evidence. That's when the team split by accident, not choice. The electrician stepped into a side room to check wiring. The door shut behind her on its own. The latch clicked like a lock engaging. The forensic tech ran to help, then stopped dead. In the wallpaper, beneath peeling layers, were outlines. Human outlines. Like bodies pressed into the wall from the inside. Not paintings. Imprints. Rowan's radio crackled. He heard Maribel's breathing fast, panicked. Then her voice trembling. She said she was in a room full of televisions. Old CRT screens stacked floor to ceiling, all turned on, all playing different footage. Rowan followed the sound, turning down a hallway that shouldn't exist, and found her standing in the glow of static. On every screen he saw the same thing. People. Inside the house. Different times. Different years. Eric Malone from 2006 stumbling through the living room. A teenage girl from 1997 crying and begging a wall to open. A man Rowan recognized from a 2018 report, screaming that something was wearing his mother's voice. And then, Mara. She was in the footage, standing in the child's room, staring at drawings. The video timestamp wasn't 2 weeks ago. It was live. Rowan's stomach dropped. Mara turned slowly toward the camera, eyes wide, lips trembling. Behind her, in the corner of the room, something unfolded out of the shadows. Not stepping forward, unfolding, like it had been folded into the darkness and was now unwrapping itself. The thing's face was indistinct, like the human mind couldn't hold its details. But its mouth was clear. Too wide. And smiling. Mara raised her hand as if she could touch the screen. Her palm pressed against the glass. Then she moved closer and mouthed a single word. Don't. The screen flickered. And every television in the room showed the same image now. The dining table. The Hargreave parents sitting, hands folded, eyes open. And behind them, standing like a shadow made solid. The same tall thing. This time it looked straight at Rowan through the screen. Rowan felt the pressure in his skull intensify, like the house was squeezing his thoughts. He staggered. His vision blurred. His memories, his real memories, began slipping, replaced by images of children laughing upstairs, drawings of houses with mouths, and his own name being whispered from inside the walls. Maribel screamed, pointing. The wall beside the televisions began to bulge outward, as if something inside it was pressing to get out. A slow knock started. Not from the door. From inside the wall. 1, 2, 3. Then a fourth knock closer, louder, like something had moved toward them. Rowan grabbed Maribel and ran, but the hallway was no longer the hallway. Doors opened onto rooms they'd never seen. Stairs led sideways. The house folded space like paper. And then Rowan saw it, the thing's trick. Every time he turned, he caught glimpses of familiar faces in the shadows. His father. His sister. A friend who died years ago. All standing still, all watching, all smiling with the same unnatural wideness. The house wasn't just haunted. It was learning what you loved, so it could use it. Rowan and Maribel stumbled back into the living room, except it wasn't the living room anymore. The walls were covered in fresh scratch marks, layered over one another like frantic writing. The air vibrated with whispering voices that sounded like children trying to speak through water. On the floor in the center of the room was a trapdoor Rowan hadn't seen before. It was open, and from inside came the sound that froze his blood. Daniel's voice. Not over a radio. Not a recording. From below. A weak, strained breath, then a whisper of a name. Mara? Rowan shone his flashlight into the opening. The beam fell into an impossible depth stair descending far beyond what the house could physically contain. The darkness below shifted, alive with movement. Then a hand appeared on the edge of the trapdoor. A human hand. Fingertips scratched raw. It gripped the floor and began to pull something up. And Rowan realized too late that it wasn't Daniel. Because the wrist was too long. The joints bent wrong. And the hand was smiling. Rowan took a step back as the thing started to climb out. The lights died. And the house began to laugh. If the house can wear the voices, faces, and memories of the people it consumes, then when someone finally escapes, how will anyone know they are still human, and not the house itself letting something out? To be continued in part 3.